Hey guys, it's Matt. I am a compulsive gambler in recovery and I am your mind and movement mentor here to help. So in today's video, I want to talk about how taking some control over your vices and things that you do in day-to-day life that you would like to minimize can help with recovery for addiction. So these two things are kind of separate in a sense that it's something you are fully addicted to is something that you don't have conscious control over. I was a compulsive gambler for almost 20 years and I can very much relate to that. Having said that, I do feel like there are some tips and tricks that you can use to strengthen your mind and to build kind of positive habits in terms of the way you think about things. So say for example, you've got a behavior that you are looking to reduce. You do it more than you would like. Maybe it's an addiction, maybe it's not, but it's something that isn't serving you and you want to reduce the amount in which you do said activity. It's really powerful to think about where the continuation of doing that activity is going to take you on to. The more kind of explicit and visceral you can get with those thoughts, the better. So think about where the continuation of that behavior is going to lead you to. There's something really powerful that you can do called a Dickens process, which comes from the concept of the movie play A Christmas Carol, which is if you keep going in a certain line of behavior, where does that take your future self? And you almost fast forward in time to 5, 10, 20 years down the road and you think about what life looks like then. How do people treat you? How do you treat yourself? How do you talk to yourself? How do you operate and navigate through the world? And then you really anchor into those emotions. And then you come back to today and realize that that actually hasn't happened yet and you can change that. Because it's one thing to be a little bit frustrated about a certain kind of behavior. It's another thing to really like embody and anchor into your nervous system the real emotion behind where that's going to lead you. So the way I like to think about vices and addiction really is it's giving you something that is helping you now. It could be a certain level of comfort, it could be a certain level of distraction or escapism. And I like to kind of split it into three things. Whenever you do something, you're either doing it from your lower self, your day-to-day self, or your higher self. So you could think about your higher self being like your spirit. That's your goals, your dreams, your aspirations. When you're locked in and focused on those and working towards those, you could say you're in your higher self. When you're in your day-to-day self, that's just like being in your body. So your biological drives, I'm hungry, I'm thirsty, I'm horny, whatever. And your lower consciousness self is where the addiction kind of creeps in. It can be that instant gratification, that avoidance, that escapism, that kind of state change that you know isn't doing you any good, but you can stay there. And no one is enlightened enough to only ever be in higher consciousness. We're going to kind of move between all three states at various different times. But you want to definitely try and stay in the higher consciousness mode as long as possible and have an awareness of kind of the levels between the three different states. Because when you're in lower consciousness, so for me these days, that could look like I'm really, really craving some food. Now, in the past, that might look like I really, really want to go and gamble. But I feel like I've kind of trained myself out of that to the point where if I'm in that lower state, I'll go for a vice that's maybe not as destructive as that path, which I do believe if I was to gamble again, that would continue that path of kind of self-destruction. That's why, I'm never going to have another place, another bet again, or partake in any kind of gambling activity. There is also the awareness of, okay, I'm in a lower consciousness mode. I'm not too sure why. I want to change my state. I'm trying to escape something. So for me these days, I might go and have a large treat meal. I might go and have some ice cream. I might go and have some junk food. And that's kind of scratching that itch a bit, if you will, but it's not as destructive for me. And then I try to understand why I'm in the lower consciousness state, what's going on, be a bit introspective, maybe think what's led me up to feeling that way, whereas these kind of quote unquote cravings come from. And then look to think about what it takes to move into the other states. And I think just the awareness of that has been massive for me. Like I say, I'm never going to be in this high consciousness mode 24/7, 365. I think that's probably impossible for anyone. But when you think about what activity you're doing, what place it's coming from, and think about almost expanding out like a web, the action that you're doing. So for me, for example, if I was to go and gamble, that might look like I start manipulative behaviour, I start lying to people that I care about, I start having to drain my financial resources and look for additional ones of those. As opposed to if I go and work on my business or I go to the gym, that is kind of building my identity of the higher self, and then I get extra layered benefits on that. I get a bit stronger, which means I get a bit more motivated, which means I have a bit more energy, which means I feel like I can do more. And so you really want to kind of, like a web, go and extrapolate out where each one goes. And at the same time, like I say, have awareness of which layer that you're in and just be conscious of it. And if you feel like you're in that lower consciousness space of action, of doing something that's going to be incredibly destructive, try to do something that's just less destructive, like go and play video games or binge on Netflix or something like that. It's something that you're taking care of that state, you've got that awareness, and then you can look to kind of move through other states as life progresses. That's just something that helped me. So I realize addiction is an incredibly sensitive subject. It's very, very nuanced. It's not something that you can just slap your fingers and kind of change, especially if you feel like you're being run by that almost like demonic possessed energy. But sometimes being a bit introspective, thinking about how you work, thinking about how your mind works, thinking about on what kind of habits that you can like align to give you a more of a positive unconscious behavior, and so that you're on autopilot working at a higher standard of behavior, can just be really helpful. So I hope that's helpful. That's today's video. Look forward to seeing you in the next one. As always, if you can support the channel in any which way you can, I'd be very, very grateful. Take care. See you next time.